What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Just My Two Cents. I'm super excited to be back with another video. So, for the channel this year, I really want to diversify it by not only discussing streaming and product reviews, but also beginning to review TV shows as well as movies for you all. So, with that being said, the first show I will be reviewing for you all is Ready to Love, Season 5, Episode 1. I really enjoy Ready to Love. I enjoy the commentary on YouTube, so I figured, why not go ahead and put my 2 cents into the mix? So let's go ahead and get started. So the episode begins by us meeting the singles. And the first single that we happen to meet is Paul. And with Paul, we can see that Paul is very confident. He's confident to the point to where he uses the analogy that he's somewhat of a lion in a jungle. And I'm like, okay, sir, so you're a lion in a jungle in Maryland. Okay. And then he proceeds to discuss what type of lady that he's interested in. And he begins to describe that there has to be some type of sexual energy there. I said, okay, so sexual energy. And then he describes that when he comes home, when he wants to know what's on the table, it's not necessarily food. It might be her. And I'm like, okay, interesting. So we start off the rip by talking about sex or sexual energy and things of that nature. And in my mind, I'm like, what about the substance? What about getting to know somebody mentally and emotionally before you share that type of tie with them? Later on, he says that of course it has to be some type of substance there because he wants something forever. And in my mind, as a viewer, I'm wondering, so is the substance coming first or after you decide that you want to have intercourse with that person? Because the way things are set up now, I would rather get to know somebody mentally and emotionally first before sharing that type of activity with them. But that's just me. I'm just going off of what Paul has stated during the interview of us first meeting him. And then we meet Keena, who acknowledges that she is a sucker for love. And last year, she spent that time swiping left and right on these dating apps. I'm like, honey, I understand left and right. And then you think you found somebody and this person turns out to be different. Very different. So this person says that she is ready to mix and mingle. And I'm like, yes, I am here all for it. So they are the only 2 singles there when they first get there. And he compliments her on her dress and says that beautiful must be her other name. And that particular pickup line felt very hard in my opinion because she's like, oh, was that like a line? And I'm like, yeah, honey, he was trying to pick you up because he is a lion in a jungle. And then we next meet Tiffany. And Tiffany says that she likes to be touched and she likes to touch. And I'm like, okay. So then Paul proceeds to ask her about cooking because she admits that she's from the South. I'm like, okay, girl, yes, a good Southern lady, a good Southern belle. Then we meet Wiley. I thought Wiley was actually cute. I thought, like, okay, Wiley, we close in age. You cute. What's up? But he begins to discuss how he's named after his grandfather, which I think is actually cute. I think the name is cute. I think he's a cutie. So definitely will be keeping my eye out for Wiley this season. And he discusses how sometimes because he's an ex-jock, people think that he has or had the ladies, but he's actually ready to settle down, which is very commendable. So we'll see what Wiley is about this particular season. And as they are talking, they begin to discuss how women really outnumber men from, I think it's 10-1. And Paul begins to act as though he doesn't know what they're talking about. Like, oh, really? Oh, no. Sir, you know the statistics. Don't act like that. But they're having a conversation. And then we next meet Fernando. And with Fernando, he begins to discuss how his past ex did not have any respect for him. And it was to the point to where I really felt bad for Fernando. I was like, oh, poor Fernando, because he was saying how his ex was cheating on him, had men in his house, was going to new beaches without him. It was a mess. That relationship seemed like a mess. But I was like, dang, I felt bad for Fernando, but he seemed to be a cool person. Then we next meet Precious, and then Keena comes out. Keena, I was not feeling her dress. I'm just going to say that. I will go ahead and put myself out there to say I was not feeling Keena's dress. Keena's dress to me looked like those slips I used to wear when I was little. And I'm pretty sure if you used to go to church, you know, those slips, those full body slips that your mama and your grandma probably put on. It just gave me slip vibe. That's what she was giving me. She stated that she wanted a man to lead while she controlled him from the back. So she would be pulling the strings. I'm like, okay, you know, that's different. And yeah, she just gave me slip vibes. And you know who she reminded me of? She reminds me of the lady from Abbott Elementary. She reminds me of the principal. Like, they, to me, favor like the way they look. Next, we are introduced to Demetrius, who is retired from the military, and he admits that he did not settle down sooner because he was in the military and he wasn't necessarily focusing on one woman at the particular time. And now he's ready to really focus on a relationship with one person. A lot of the ladies are feeling Demetrius. They was like, okay, who is he when he walks in? And Precious decides to take Demetrius off to have a private conversation with him. And I thought it was really cute how she just pulled him away and they went to sit in a private area to have a conversation. Now, with this particular conversation, she discovers that he likes a lot of outdoors activities, and he agrees if she does some outdoors activities with him, then he'll try some of the activities that she's interested in. And I really just thought that was cool because it's kind of like give and take. If you try something that I like, I'll try something you like. And I just thought it was a really cute scene. So the next person we meet is Sabrina, and Sabrina has come equipped with a list. She has a list of some of the traits and qualities and characteristics of what she's looking for. And I'm like, sis, I am not mad at you. And I honestly think that is a plus, because if she sees a red flag or a sign that she already knows that's not on that list, she don't have to waste her time with that person, and she can move on to another person and possibly make a connection with him instead of wasting her time with somebody who she's not necessarily sure about. So I was like, okay, Sabrina, I like the list, and I think other people should have a clear list of what they're looking for, what they're not looking for, and go from there instead of wasting not only your time, but their time and everybody else who gets involved time too. Then we meet Laverne, and with Laverne, he admits that he has never really made a connection or met anyone who was really into him, really wanted to build with him in that type of sense. So I'm like, okay, Laverne, let's see if you can find a connection. And the last person that we meet is Clifton. And when Clifton walked in, I was like, okay, Clifton, like, you got this orange shirt on in this chain. What is going on? Like, where is your suit, sir? Where is your vest? Where is your outfit? And then the camera, it pans back some, and I see he got on a nice little pair of slacks with some shoes. I'm like, okay, Clifton, now you had me worried at first. But Clifton was attractive as well. And I think when he walked in, a lot of the ladies really took to him too. So I was like, okay, we got some good contenders for not only the men, but the women as well. Then nephew Tommy comes in, and he does this whole little spiel about who's tired of playing games, who's ready to love, and all these other questions. And of course, everybody's just like, I'm ready. I'm like, but are you really ready? We're going to see. This season will really show if people are ready. And with this particular season, he acknowledges that we're starting off with 7 men and 7 women, and it's really more about quality and not quantity. And I really think that's important, because when you start looking at, okay, well, I have 9 other people I can talk to if this one person doesn't work out, then you really aren't as serious about making a connection. But if you know it's only 7 people or 5 people or 4 people that you have to make a connection with, then you're like, okay, let me really try to be like Sabrina and have a list of qualities that I'm interested in versus qualities that I'm not interested in. Like, it forces you to really understand who you are and get to know somebody on a more deeper level. We not trying to do surface level stuff. We trying to get down to really knowing who this person is. What is your crazy? What type of crazy do you have tucked away inside of you? And Nephew Tommy also tells people that 2 people are going home this episode. And everybody's looking around like, 2 people are going home this episode? Yes, 2 people are going home this episode. The next scene is with Fernando and Joy, and they are talking about kids, where they're from. And Joy says that it's more like an interview. And I really feel like Fernando has been hurt in the past, and he's a little nervous around the women because he's probably ready to love, but he's probably scared to love. Because if you had somebody disrespecting you like that to the point to where they had somebody in your house, they was taking trips to relationship places and vacations without you, that can mess up a person's mental. Like, so I can understand why Fernando was a little standoffish, but honey, he was nervous. He was nervous. I think at one point he took his handkerchief out. He was wiping his head. I'm like, honey is nervous. But Fernando, we rooting for the best for you, especially when the reunion comes. We hope that you have found somebody by then. Next, we move to Keena and Wiley. And Wiley is discussing his work, and he's talking about how he's a coach or does like athletics at this particular school. And Keena is trying to figure out, okay, so are we talking about like professional level, college level, high school, middle school level? And then he says that it's more of like a middle school, high school level. I think more of high school. And then she said, okay, so you want like that middle school, high school. And I'm like, don't do that. Don't do that to him. And then she asks his age. And then she's like, I'm not really interested in somebody that's younger, which is fair. You know, I'm not going to knock her for that, but she kind of rubbed me the wrong way when she said that about him being a middle school, high school coach, because, you know, you don't disrespect somebody's profession. And I do appreciate how he came back and said, well, I love what I do, because you don't let nobody demean anything. If that's your job and if you love it and if you enjoy helping those kids and the success that you're helping them reach, and if you sleep good at night and you make a decent living, then don't let anybody discourage you or disparage you from what you do. They both pretty much admit they don't necessarily feel a connection with each other. I'm like, honey, Wiley, no, yeah, she's not for you, and Keena, he's not for you. So then we move on to Sabrina and Demetrius. They're having a conversation. They talk about how they have been married before. I really enjoyed how Demetrius took accountability for his marriage, saying as why his ex-marriage rather did not work out, and saying that he went back to school. And I also really appreciate how Sabrina said that the reason her marriage didn't work out really because she married early and she figured out that she didn't know what she wanted when she was married to her previous husband. And the accountability on Sabrina's and Demetrius' part was just phenomenal, because if you have somebody who is showing accountability this early in the game, that's a game changer right there. That's a green flag. That's not a red flag. That's a green flag. And I also appreciate how Sabrina mentioned that because she got married early and she didn't necessarily know what she wanted out of the relationship or from that particular relationship, it really helped her to do some self-work before she jumped back into something else. And I'll go ahead and throw my 2 cents in here really quickly. So sometimes when you're younger, people are really trying to persuade you to go ahead and get married and have kids and start a family. And sometimes when you're younger, you don't even know what you want in a mate. You don't know what type of person you want. You don't know who you are as a person. You don't realize that you might want to work on your education, on your career. You want to travel. You don't understand what it really takes to build with somebody and to have a family. You really don't know when you are younger, because the only thing you can really think of is, well, this person in my family said I need to go ahead and get married and have kids, and you really don't know who you are as a person yet. So I really appreciate Sabrina even bringing that up, saying that when she was younger, she didn't even know what she wanted from a relationship, and now she has come with a whole list of things that she wants, and I really think that's commendable. So in the next scene, we see Paul and Ace, aka Paul, aka P.O., aka my name changes depending on who I am talking to at that particular moment. I'm like, sir, we gonna move on. So Paul is questioning Ace about her past marriage, saying that because she was only married for like a year and a half, she didn't give it enough time. She gave up on the relationship, asking, do she give up on relationships that easily? And I was like, Paul, why are you questioning this person about their marriage? This person was in that marriage with the other person. She and he, they knew best. They knew best, and you have no authority and no right to question that. So Paul at this point is just a red flag to me. He's just a red flag. And maybe in other episodes he might soften up some, but right now I'm just like, okay, Paul. Next we see Precious and Tori, and they're discussing Romeo and Juliet, which is a conversation that spurred from them discussing what they were drinking. And then from there they begin to discuss some of their family challenges, about their relationships with their parents. And then they begin to discuss how those relationships influence the type of relationships that they are able to have with people now in regards to being able to express or receive different type of affection from people. So they were able to make a connection from those experiences. Then we are faced with the first elimination of the season, and unfortunately, Fernando, the interviewer, was eliminated first. However, P.O. came very close. Next, we see them standing up there to kind of show us who's all left. And I was disappointed in the show because I'm like, these people look great. However, where's the person who tells people where to stand, where to sit, to give it some type of structure? You know, when you take a class picture and then you have that photographer who's like, okay, well, you stand here, you stand here, you sit here, you kneel here. Okay, you turn like this, look more this way. It was just like that person took off for that day. They said, we gonna do the best we can. And I'm like, why didn't they try to give it some type of structure? Because they just looked all jumbled up on top of each other together. So the singles go back to speed dating, and the first couple of singles we see getting to know each other better is Clifton and Joy. And Joy has a lot of interest in Clifton, and he says he feels as though he has a connection with her too, because he has a lot in common with her. He is really looking for somebody that's adventurous, that wants to travel and see the world with him. I'm like, okay, Clifton. However, one thing that kind of threw me off is that he drank after her during COVID. Now, I know they have to get the COVID test and making sure they don't have COVID and all this other stuff. But I'm like, the way stuff's set up nowadays, and I'm a millennial. I'm like one of the younger millennials. I'm like, I don't drink after people, and y'all older, man, y'all know better. But anyway, maybe it was just for the show. Maybe he felt comfortable. Like, it is what it is. Next, we have Tiffany and Tori, and you know, they're making a connection. They're discussing where they're from. They're discussing kids, and he stated that she seemed guarded. And I see that this is a phrase that's used a lot in this episode. And for me, I want to know, how much information do you want to know? And it seems like they just want to know everything. For me, if this is my first time meeting you, I'm not about to share a lot of information with you, especially personal information. One of my friends always say, the more information people have about you, the more ammunition they have to use against you. I don't know. It was just, oh, you're seeing guarded, like you're guarded, so it's a wall there. I'm like, oh, okay, like how much information do we really need to share on the first date? But next we move to Sabrina and Laverne, and they were talking. Then Precious came up to talk to Laverne, and then they began to talk about bodybuilding and tanning lotion and all this other stuff. And as they were talking, Keena comes up and interrupts, saying that she wants to sit and talk to Laverne. I'm like, okay, cool. And then we move over to Paul and Sabrina, and they begin to have a conversation. And then we move over to Fernando and Dakia having a conversation, and you can see that they are connecting, and they are talking about where they would possibly want to live, and they're talking about the water and possibly moving out of the United States and all this good stuff. So they're having like a quick, when I say quick, I mean quick conversation, a quick vibe session. And then Keena comes in. She asks, can she have a seat? And then they fill her in on what they're discussing, which I thought was really nice, because sometimes people, they just pick up the conversation from where they left the conversation at and don't try to include the person. So I thought that was really nice of them to tell her what they were talking about. And then Fernando asks Keena about if she wants to move, if she just wants to be in Maryland. And she's like, no, she could see herself in Houston or Atlanta. I'm like, okay, Houston, Atlanta. Then Fernando asks about, do she see herself living outside of the United States, on the water, or what have you. And then he mentions how the two of them, Fernando and Dakia, were discussing living abroad, probably somewhere where it has water, or island hopping, as they were discussing. And she kind of gives that little nod, and then they say they are going to get a drink or what have you. And Fernando mentions that Keena had looked tired and that she was probably looking for somewhere to sit. And I'm like, honey, I understand. A lot of people had looked like they were getting ready to kind of just take it on in for the night, because it probably was a long day. Then when Nephew Tommy is talking with the guys, they discuss how Sabrina was one of their top choices, along with Precious as well as Dakia. The person that the guys decided to send home was Keena, which was probably not a surprise based on what we saw on the episode and based on the connections that she had or didn't have with the guys. We wish her the best, and just like Fernando, we hope that she's able to find love, and hopefully when the reunion comes, she's able to report back that she has found somebody who is compatible with her. Now, based on the previews for this particular season, I think it's going to be juicy. I think it's going to be entertaining, and I'm excited to continue to review this for you all. So make sure you go ahead, you like, you share, and you subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.